button, and I just need to get a link. You'll be all right, Santita. You will
It's
be
all
all right. I promise. She said, "Oh God." All right. So we are live
we'll
for
have
sure.
don't worry.
All right. So let's tweet it and get started. We've got
Live.
one other person watching,
Who is this? Who's
which
watching?
which is probably Anna.
No, I
Me.
weirdly, I'm only here.
I'm definitely watching. It's up to 4 now, so yeah, we've got a couple people in here. Welcome to all of you that are joining us live today in our stream for our episode 3. We're gonna give it a few minutes before we get going, so please ask any questions, give any shout outs, throw them in the chat. Hello, Danny. Welcome to.
Hi, Danny.
Let's get the chats going.
I
Why am I
love
not
how my
seeing?
connection worked perfectly until now. Okay, I'm back.
That's
Boy,
how it
this is
works,
gonna.
though.
I don't really see anyone. I just see pixels of varying dimensions, which is basically a representation of how I see when I don't wear my glasses. So honestly,
You
I remember the
are.
first time I put glasses on in my life. I was like, "Oh my god, there's an HD version of the world. That's fantastic."
I have to get glasses soon, and I've been waiting for my insurance to switch, so I'm probably gonna go
Mm.
before I go to California.
I tell you what, I got mine from a really random website. They took like 2 weeks to ship. They were like £70, so like, I don't know, $80, $90 with
Mm-hmm.
lenses. And I'm doing a free advertisement for this website. They should really give me an affiliate link.
Oh, that's
This
funny.
is this is actually a good reminder for everyone. Every time you're enthusiastic about something, you're particularly excited, get a referral link before you start talking about it because it might be, it might be worth it. You might be making lots of money. This girl once on TikTok, she started advertising this like, I don't know, like a vegetable slicer that changed their life or whatever. She got millions and millions of views, but she didn't use an affiliate link. So apparently she missed out on like
Millions and
thousands and
millions of dollars.
dollars. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably millions because it had like 40 million views or something. So it's very powerful.
Welcome, Danny. Glad you are here. And then we have I cannot. I think it's Diop is the last name, so welcome as well. Anybody else that's in here that's joining us live, please throw your name out there. Say hello. Tell us where you're from, so we know where you are. Anna is actually in New York, so she's on the East Coast today, not
It's
doing
fine.
this from Italy like she normally is. And
Well, I'm technically usually calling from England. Um,
you're technically from England. That's right. I thought you were always in
well,
Italy. I don't know why.
no, I am in, well, not in London, but nearby, um, which, it's nice. It's nice. Sometimes I'll be calling from Italy, but you'll see if I'm calling from Italy because my background is going to be just a bright green background, which I'm sure you can Photoshop all things on. But it's because when I was 17, I was like, I thought I was an interior designer,
Mm-hmm.
which I was an interior designer. I was not. So I asked my parents if I could paint the walls of my room in Italy bright green, and then I just made some really random furniture choices too. So it's a time capsule of 2013 and 17-year-old Anna. That I'm sure.
That's
Oh god,
funny.
Santita, where are you calling us from? Like we're on the radio. Where are you calling in from?
Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, nice. We have a Birmingham in the UK, and they have a really funny accent over there. It's cool, but it's very peculiar, the Birmingham accent. They call it Brummy, the Brummy accent. over there. Do you have a nickname for Birmingham, Alabama, or is just
I don't think so.
Don't
If
go.
if we do, I'm too young to know it.
you should start just calling, just using the same nickname as the UK version of the city and see if people start to catch on or if people are just like, that is really weird.
That's funny.
I,
All right. Well, I guess we could get going a little bit. I don't um have a intro to do. I can do that post production. I'm not gonna go crazy like last time with Stewart's and do it live.
can we do a little bit
I'm
of like
I'm
soundboard, like do like the sound effects were my favorite part. I was excited.
that
Santita, like
soundboard.
hang up with me. We have to add the sound effects.
Look at the you're like a 5-year-old. They're like, you have to do it. I'm not going on. I'm not
Yeah,
moving.
yeah, yeah. No. I am like I'm not interviewing anyone until I hear. I don't
All
know.
right,
I
so
don't.
here we go. I like to welcome our guest today, Santita Humphries. There you
What,
go. That's
what
that's
about
that's
what about the football stadium music?
oh, that football stadium. You mean that that really bad music I did last time? Crickets. Yeah, I don't
No,
have
cricket.
chimes, tambourines.
Not this one. This is Craig. This introduction. We'll have to redo it until you find the right music.
Yes, I know. I have to
Oh
find the
my
right
god.
music.
Unhinged behavior today.
Yeah. Oh,
Do you know what? There's not gonna be the football stadium music, but maybe we can sing. Maybe.
is that what you're looking
There we
for? There's no way I'm doing this again this week.
go. Do it, guys. Welcome, Santita. Woo! I did not have any
Yeah.
as good as it's done again.
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
horrible. I feel
welcome
like that's
and
like
sorry for
1960s music.
I like that. I love that song. It's like
No. I
thanks
gotta
for
load
putting
some more. I gotta load some more sounds on my board. But yes, thank you, Santita, for coming today. And I think this is a really good episode for those of you who are junior devs or trying to get into the business. And at least this will be from one perspective of how she's working through things. So I'm gonna let Anna take over from here.
I no, actually, I was looking forward to this episode personally as well because today I feel really low energy. Maybe a bit of like jet lag, a bit of moving around, and I was rereading the notes, the pre-episode notes, and I was like, yeah, Santita, who learned iOS development under conditions which we'll find out soon. I'm sure she wouldn't feel like I am feeling today. So I'm looking forward to, I don't know, just to ask and figure out. How you've done it all because I need to learn some tips. Um, but yeah, how are you feeling? Are you excited? Are you a bit nervous?
Super nervous. Yeah.
Oh, just imagine, just forget there's people listening. People, pretend it's all just chatting on a Zoom call or something, and I'm just a really weird person that has interrupted your Sunday afternoon to ask about your. It's I saw my image move
Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah, that was
Okay.
me. I'm messing around.
You know what? Do you know what, Craig? You were completely right because earlier Craig said it's like, oh, I'm gonna let you know exactly when I'm gonna change the format because otherwise, Anna, you're gonna say like, what are you doing? And I've just that's exactly what I would do.
Yes.
But yeah, so okay, let's start from the very beginning, right? Uh, what made you decide to start learning iOS development? What made you curious about it? What was the moment?
Well, actually, iOS kind of like fell in my lap. I was really just looking to get into development and coding, like all together. And then I was looking at Facebook one day, and actually, Teresa Thomas is the president of the PTA at my son's school. So she tweeted out about Ed Farm Pathways, and I was like, hey, this might be my opportunity. So I actually applied, got in, and when I was doing that program, it was kind of like 2 days out of the week from 5:30 to 7:30, like two. So I was actually working overnight then from 1 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. So I would have to stay up. Usually, like accustomed to going to sleep at 6 p.m. So there was like an extra 2 hours of being up and feeling like a zombie when I got up to go to work at 1. So I did that and liked it, and then they invited me back to do like the fellowship program, like do the internship program.
Mm.
And I went from Pathways to Innovate Birmingham, which was learning a totally different language, which surprisingly helped me with learning Swift, because when I started learning JavaScript, I got Swift more, and I was like, hey, Swift is easier than JavaScript.
Mhm.
So I
And nice.
enjoyed Swift way more. Yeah. So after Innovate, then we jumped in with Craig, which now I'm trying to kind of like get back to the basics of Swift so that I can catch up to where I am now with Craig.
Mhm. Nice. But this is like, so I have lots of questions. I didn't want to interrupt you because I tend to do that sometimes. So what was it? You had a full-time job and you were learning overnight. Did I get that
Mhm.
right? Oh my
So
God.
working overnight, yeah, and learning like in the evening time when normal people would be getting off work.
Oh gosh, that must have been quite something. How did I? Oh, actually, I had another question. What was your job at the time? What were you doing as a full-time job?
Um, it's current. It's a histology. It's like in a lab, and so pretty
Oh,
much it's like how you get your cancer diagnosis. And so
oh.
my job at the time was to describe the samples that came into the lab so that when it gets to the pathologist, they can have like a visual of what was seen when it first came in. Because when they get it, it's going to be on a slide. And
Mm.
so they'll be looking under the microscope to see, if cancer cells are present or not.
Wow. This is like I mean, I don't think people understand how hard this is. This is like, so you had a very, very, very tough, very like reasoning and very, intensive full-time job because, if there's there's a lot of jobs that, like, for example, when I was doing stuff and it's things that you can kind of like, you don't need to use too much of your mental power, is a lot of like physical job, which is still very tiring, but having a very mentally intensive job and then learning iOS development, I can't even imagine how that must have been. And by the way, I failed my histology class in university. I was really bad. I was really, really bad. I made it up with like a retake exam, but initially it was
Remember, mom's watching, so don't say anything you're not supposed to
she knows. She trusts me. She knows all about this. This is one of the,
do.
this is one of the ones that we've had plenty of conversations about. But yeah,
Uh,
no, it's and when was this actually? I didn't ask, like, how long ago did you start?
it was like right in the middle of COVID. So I want to say 2020, 2021, something like that.
In the middle of COVID, with a full-time job, you were studying
Mhm.
iOS overnight. I
and
think I'm speaking to some sort of like
and a kid, don't
superhuman.
forget.
And kids. Okay, I had, like, I had a list of questions prepared and I was all gonna ask, like, why did you start? Why do you like, but I actually have to ask the number one question is, how on earth, how the blooming heck did you manage? Like how did you have to just please like us? I'm shocked because it must take like I don't know a lot of organization. How did you handle this all?
Well, to be honest, with the child part of it, I have to like give props to my mom because put in a lot of work with my child, my son or
Mm.
whatever. But like for the job, I had been working on a job for like 5 or 6 years. So like over time, you get used to the job and it becomes mundane, and it's just like not what I like. So I like to be challenged and pushed. And so that's pretty much how I did it. It was like it learning iOS and Swift actually helped me be okay on my full-time job because I was getting challenged elsewhere and I wasn't getting challenged on my job. So they made me be okay with doing something mundane because I looked forward to in the morning getting off and being able to sit with development in Swift. So it actually helped me with my full-time job.
That's amazing. It gave you like the passion, I guess, to kind of continue on.
Hmm.
That is awesome. That is, but why especially iOS development? Did you like? Was there anything else like besides learning JavaScript for a bit that you were interested in, or what do you like about
No,
iOS? A
like
lot of iOS people watching here, and they love to hear how amazing iOS is and how.
yeah. So after JavaScript, we like sat down, I want to say for like 7 months before we started up with Craig.
Mhm.
So in between that time, we I kind of like tried to do like a Python class, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, no, this just not going to work out for me." So I was really looking forward to getting back to Swift.
Nice,
So
and it's
yeah,
good because I guess you tried quite a few things, and I guess that's how you know what you like and what you don't like, right? By trying
yeah.
and seeing. Nice, and I think my favorite thing about iOS when I first started, I don't know if you can relate or if you think it's cool. It's not. It's Swift was a good language. I really enjoyed working with Swift, but my favorite thing was like seeing things like come to life under your eyes. What was the like? Did you have those moments?
So now I'm just like getting to the point where I see things come to life. Like that's why I'm like I guess pretty much not struggling, but getting used to bridging that gap to where I'm putting what I learned in basics with and using it practically. It's like, I know it, but now I have to put it in action practically. So now I have to go back to the basics and pull the basics into the development part of it. So it's pretty cool seeing it come to life, yeah.
Nice. This must be the time. I always feel like when you're starting to learn something, there's a beginning part, which is like you see this learning curve in front of you, and you think, oh my gosh, what on earth is this? But then you start to focus on like as you've done, like you start to look at the basics, you learn the basics, and you learn the kind of the core. So this is a random Italian gesture. Please ignore me. I feel bad because the podcast listeners won't be able to see all my Italian gesticulation, but I'm sure they can imagine. um, but yeah, so like after the moment of like you focus on the basics of what makes whatever you're learning, um, like what the foundational, I guess, part of it,
Mhm.
then things start to click, and that is the fun bit. So I'm happy you are at this point now. um and yeah, and you've been enjoying it. What was like talking about the learning curve and I guess the kind of the intimidation that someone may feel when you see a big like you know a lot of things to learn ahead of you. um what was your biggest fear? We're gonna get deep here. What was your your biggest fear when you started learning? Like what made you did anything make you scared? Because
I was just like pretty much the definition of the imposter syndrome. Like just feeling like I'm a fake and I'm truly learning. I'm doing it. I see myself learning and doing it, but it's like, girl, who are you playing? Like you playing yourself. Like what are you doing? You do this.
but now look,
So
you've you've gone. I think it's,
Yeah.
to be honest, syndrome is such a horrible part of the learning journey, and I actually think it is part of almost everyone's journey. I don't think I've spoken to anyone who hasn't suffered from it. If someone says like, "No, I know I'm the best," I'm like, "Okay, okay." It's just weird. Like, no, this. I think something that people kind of like don't realize is that development now it feels easy because it's like, oh, like I've learned it now, but before you learn it, it
Hmm.
doesn't feel or look easy at all.
Nope.
So no, it's cool. Kudos to you for getting over it. I think it is. It must have been like a little bit more daunting, right, to think about like what you have to learn, considering like all your other responsibilities during the day. But honestly, like I don't even know how to express like the mad respect I've got for you. But it's honestly like out of out of this world. But I think, do you what was I gonna ask? My brain. I'm sorry. I did tell you that I'm a bit sleep deprived today. So not like, see, once again, here I am complaining, and you were like, running on 2 hours sleep. So ignore me and my weak mind. But I was kind of asking, okay, so now you're at the stage where you're like things are clicking, and you're really like starting to get some steam. Is that what people say? So what are like what are your objectives now? Like what is your goal with learning iOS development? Do you have an app you want to make, or do you want to work as a developer? What is your aspirations?
Yes.
I
Ambitions.
think right now I'm still intimidated. And so right now I'm still trying to learn as much as I can to try to get to a confidence point where I think I can really do this full time. I can go to an interview and actually get hired. So actually right now I'm going back through 100 days of Swift. And,
Nice.
and to be honest, actually I think we kind of skip in pathways, tuples, and I heard of closures. I was familiar with the term closures, but until like honestly earlier today, I wouldn't be able to point out a closure to you. So now I got the syntax for closures. So going back through, it's like it's really helping out.
Well, I tell you what, something about closure is every iOS developer will be able to tell you this. At the beginning is one of the hardest things to learn. Then when like it took me a long time, very, very long time to get it. So don't be worried. Like don't think there's, it's gonna be an immediate thing, because it really is not. In fact, now it's like I think the understanding that I developed from it is more like how to use them, and like not, it's hard to explain what they are as well, because one of my mentees was asking me like, oh, I'm trying to understand them, can you help me explain? And I was like, yeah, it's the yeah, the thing, yeah, that's the thing, and you pass it around like a potato. And he was like, what? So please, be patient. But I guess it's like it's really inspiring to hear this, I think, for me, because I'm curious about the learning journeys. Like that to me is the most fascinating part, that I guess that I ask everyone. But it's good to hear that you have a goal. But don't I mean, one advice that I give everyone that I see is like to start thinking of yourself already as an iOS developer. Even if you started learning like a few years ago and you don't feel like, you have the imposter syndrome, you start thinking of yourself as an iOS developer, and that will, in a weird way, that's what it did for me at least, like, and that's how I've managed at the very beginning, because I struggled with the exact same things. You think of yourself, I'm an iOS developer, I'm Santita Humphries, I'm an iOS developer. Even if you don't have an official job title, or you don't have like these things, weirdly, like you become what it's weird to say, like, you become what you call yourself, right? Because you start really feeling it and embodying it. And that is worth also with like the negative thought patterns and stuff. I was reading it in a book. Like, if you, not in a book, in Atomic Habits, everyone's read this book. But if you start saying yourself, like, I used to call myself, oh, I'm so clumsy all the time, I'm so clumsy, I always fall down. And then I stopped saying that, and I was like, no, actually, I have extremely good balance and I'm very in charge of how I'm moving. Weirdly, that became true, because you start to embody this version, like this thing that you call yourself, right? Both in the negative and in the positive. So this is something I have to tell you, like, Santita, you are an iOS developer, and and the journey that you've done is like more impressive than probably any journey I've ever heard. Like, even people that have been in the industry for like 10, 20 years. So you should be like extremely, extremely proud of myself. If I wasn't sleep deprived, I would use better vocabulary and like I would make better speech. But just to
let
say
me
that I am
let
like
me
in absolute awe. So
let me jump in there and say that it doesn't. First of all, where you are now is a lot farther than probably majority of those who say they're going to learn iOS and then they start learning and then they stop, and then they start learning and then they stop. So think about it like this: like, you're already farther along than most. You already have a lot of the, I gave you an assignment to do a presentation on APIs and closures, which is sort of what we talked about. And then we looked at doing publishers, and we kind of, I think as you started doing the research of asynchronous, and you did that short little demonstration to the group, I think you start to understand that you may think that it may not be enough, but it's a lot more than most people would do. So you just have to keep being you, and you have to just keep thinking that, you know, you just keep being positive. I know it's hard because I understand where you're coming from. Like, when you first get into this, you're like, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right things? And you are. And I would tell you, you know me, I would tell you if you're not. And I feel like you came from in the class. If I had to rank everyone, you were really quiet and you didn't really talk a lot. So I really didn't get a lot from you. And then, like I said, all of a sudden you changed, and there was something in you that, I don't know, it clicked, it did something, but you kind of went from the like, I never ask questions, to asking some of the most complex questions anyone asks in class. And I'm like, I don't even know how to answer that question, to be honest with you. So I think you're there. I just think that it's all about confidence. And I remember you asking me about the Apple Pencil API, and I said to you, you'll figure it out, and you were kind of like, well, I'm not. And then of course, like a couple of days later, you had an answer, and I'm like, I think you get scared and you doubt yourself, so you ask me. And I think you just have to understand that I trust in you enough to know that you'll answer the question. And if you don't, then hey, you don't. But I think most of it is just a crutch where you're just afraid. And I've told you that. I think it's just a matter of time. But you end up always answering. If I don't answer the question for you, you're like, I figured it out. And then it's like, you're mad at me for figuring it out. But that was like the whole point of why I made you work and figure it out. So it's like, you're there. It's just a matter of you believing it in yourself. So
nice. This is kind of brings me. I wanted to ask as well, because we mentioned it briefly before. But so Craig is your official mentor through EdFarm, right?
Hmm.
And how? And I guess like when he was telling the story now, how we went from like quiet and shy to like challenging him and putting him in his place. Which kudos for that, because it's really fun. He deserves that after not having the perfect music for the introduction.
thanks.
Sorry. So I was on. Do you what changed? What was the like the what flipped the switch? Were you just like, did you just have enough, or how did you go from being the
No,
quiet?
I think it was just about being comfortable, knowing that, I could reach out to Craig whenever, filling out everybody and personalities and everything like
Mhm.
that. And then it only took him getting mad one time, so I had to show that, hey, I may be quiet, but I'm actually doing the work. So let me show you that I'm doing the work, so you won't be so mad.
Yes, I love that. It's interesting though, like sometimes like people automatically think that if someone is quiet that they're not, but not maybe in this case, but in other cases I've realized, like even I've done it in the past, you think if someone is quiet maybe they're not too like into the material or something. But I think at the same time we have to all like let people have the time to process what's happening, right? And to process also how they feel towards the, oh my gosh, sorry, my hair, how how they feel about the learning process. So no, it's, I like it. You warmed up and you were like, yeah, let me show you, I've been doing the work, let me show you.
So a lot. I will say, I'm like getting this whole like camera switching wrong, but mostly I think at the beginning there was a lot going on with. They did a lot of compositional layout and UI kit at the beginning, and
Hmm.
it's confusing. Compositional layout's confusing, and I think most of them. I had a couple that got it, like sort of, and at the beginning, and then it gradually. But I kept making them do more and more projects, and so, and I think that's kind of where the frustration probably lied at the beginning, because you think you got it, but you don't, and then you do, and there's just so much being thrown at them at once that once it got to the end of the year, it slowed down and things started to, okay, he's throwing this at again at me, but I've already done it before, and so then the comfort level became a little bit more apparent. But I think at the beginning it was just like a lot. I was throwing a lot at them, and making them, because I knew repetition is the only way you're going to learn. So I'd like
Yeah.
give them a project, do it in composition layout, and then 2 weeks later, another project, composition layout, and then another project. And if you're ever familiar with compositional layout, it takes forever to set up a project. So then you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then I think that's kind of where some of that lied. And I know a couple of them had told me that. Santita not didn't specifically say, but I really wanted to make sure that they understood it, because people are like, it's a great tool. It's better than old school collection views. So
So you threw a bunch of like advanced stuff at them until they got it. I'm joking. I think
no,
I guess.
no, it wasn't really advanced. It was just more creating sections and doing nibs, and like, I mean, literally it was just boxes at the beginning. We didn't do any like design stuff. It was just setup. It was like understanding how to set it up and doing that and going through that process. It was more there, because the nibs and all of that come together like down the road. All I care about is, can you make it look like this design wireframes, and that's all. Because once you get to that point, then it's about setting up the nibs, and then we did diffable data source, and now we're gradually starting to add more and more. So now APIs are being created. So now Santita can do, like, she can bring in a movie API, she can bring in and she can use an API key to pass it through. Like all of the different things that if I would have asked her 4 months ago, she wouldn't have been able to do. She could do them now with comfort.
Nice. I think we just uncover something that also I am gonna use in my talk, because I just realized that like sometimes what you can do, because when I have imposter syndrome, I and like kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, how am I going to learn all this? Sometimes all you have to do is look back and see how, 4 months ago, could you have done what you're doing now? And then you realize you're like, it's like when you're climbing up a mountain, right? And you're like, oh my God, this never ends. When am I going to have a hot chocolate break? And then you kind of turn around, you realize like, oh, actually, we're quite far up now. So it doesn't matter like how far it looks ahead. I've already got here, right? That's pretty awesome. That's a
Right.
good, that's a great way of thinking it.
Not that
Yeah.
I'm sure I'd be climbing a mountain nor thinking about hot chocolate, but hey, you know.
Ah, you know what? You know what?
I'd be more concerned about, am I gonna fall off of this mountain?
I do have a movie recommendation for you, Craig, if you have this
Uh-oh.
fear. It's called Free Solo. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay,
No, I
dude.
have seen it. Yes. Where the guy
Okay.
climbs the mountain without any gear.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen it.
I've seen that movie like 10 times.
Yeah, no.
Santita.
I've seen it once. That's the most I can get out of it.
Santita, give this movie a watch. It will make you think you're like, at least, you know what? Sometimes I watch it, like I was on the plane, I was so, bored and tired and feeling terrible. I watched this film and I was like, you know what? At least I'm not halfway up El Capitan with no ropes on. So it puts things into perspective. Well,
That's
it
funny.
is a good movie. Are we doing the exercise now, or do I have more time to annoy
It's up
Santita
to
with
you. I can
I
start exercise, or you could ask
because
me a
I
question.
heard we started talking about compositional layout. We started talking about different elements, different things. I think it would be a good segue before I start talking people out of my, annoying them with my hyperfixation of the moment. So
Okay, we can switch. So I think in this next section, what I'd like to do for those of you who are listening to this on the podcast, this section is going to be a little tougher for me to visually explain to you. But the idea is, in week one, we had discussed not going in tutorial hell. And I think some people may not understand what that is, especially if you're new, you don't actually have a term for it. But the idea would be you are stuck doing tutorials over and over and over again, and you're not really moving through because you're not feeling confident enough to move through. And so the idea is most content creators say pick a project and start working. And so some of you may not know how that works or how you do it or how to get started. And so what I wanted to do today was just kind of highlight that particular feature, and just kind of explain how it works. So Santita and I are going to look at a design. Now, the design can come from anywhere. The project can come from anywhere. I always recommend you pick something you love. For me, it's sports. My first project was a Lakers app and a Raiders app. But everyone's different. You pick what you feel that you love. One of my mentees, he's fitness, so his is fitness. Something that you'll do when it's late at night and you either have the choice to go to sleep or make work 15 minutes. If that app makes you work an extra 15 minutes, then do that as your project. If you don't have one, then just find something. It doesn't really matter. The idea is for you to find something that you'll work on as much as possible. So I'm going to, in particular on the screen now, I'm going to show like what a personal project looks like. In this particular case, we're looking at a movie sort of app. And the idea here would be, how do we break down the app? And then how do we move forward? So a lot of things that people find difficult is breaking down apps. So if you go to like the very first page, where like how do you identify some of the components on the screen and then what to learn? So let's look at the very first screen here. So right now we have this home screen, and in particular, we want to identify some of the screen's components so that we can start constructing our project through tutorials and learning it that way. So right now, you can see on the right-hand side, we have a couple of different sections going on. So we have a section here. We have a section here. We have somewhat of a section here. And then finally, we have a section here. So we have 4 different like distinct sections, and how does this all kind of work together? How do we know what to do? Well, if we look at the main part of the content, we have right here, we know that this is going to scroll from left to right. If it scrolls, it could just be one item. We know that this could scroll left to right, or it could be just 2 items and then a see all. So in my eyes, if we're looking at UI kit, I know what this would be. Santita, you seeing this, the first thing that you would assume to do this in would be what?
Compositional layout using nibs.
Right. So she sees it as compositional layout, and that's kind of the way that I've trained the most of the mentees I have, is because UI kit is really the first thing you should learn. If you're doing it in Swift UI, you can do this as a list, or you could do this as like a horizontal scroller with two of them. There's all kinds of different paths, but knowing that I'm gonna need knowing that step one, I'm gonna need compositional layout. I think that's the first thing that I'm gonna consider of learning when I'm trying to do tutorials. The next thing that I see majorly is this, and that's the thing that calls out this tab bar. And so this would be, for me, would be the other thing that I want to do. So I want to do a tab style layout. So to avoid to avoid what we call tutorial hell, my first thing would be to do is to watch a couple of videos on compositional layout so that I could work on and focus on this stuff. Then my next task would be to learn how to do a tab style layout so that I can go from 1 tab to 2 tabs to 3 tabs. And those would be the things I would do. So first thing I would do is I would set up a demo project, and I would work on a bunch of different compositional layout tutorials. And then once I got that done, I would then work on a demo for tab style layout. And then I would create my project, and I would create a tab style layout in there, and then add a compositional layout in there. And so I would use my project as my end all be all, but the actual anything that I want to learn new, I always create a new project. Then that way I can focus on doing messing up in a separate project and then adding to into my current personal project. So here is a really good example of that. And we can look at these extra things later, but at least the gist of what we're trying to do is here. I'm not concerned about data. I'm not concerned about any of the other stuff. I really just want to make this work for me so that I can get going. And that's great. So I'm going to clear all of this out. And I'm going to go to the next screen, and we'll do search. So again, this is pretty easy for Santita, but this particular layout is what for you?
Compositional layout.
Compositional layout. So we know again that this is going to be the same one. So I don't have to actually learn anything separate, except for I do need to do a search bar. So that'll be the only thing that's different that I want to do. So I'd create a new project, and how would I integrate a compositional layout with a search bar? That would be what I'd do on the next one. And then finally, we'll look at one more, which is movie detail. And this one's a little more complicated because you can do it in different ways. But with Santita and I would both recommend compositional layout. And then I may have like this particular section be a nib. I'm a fan of nibs because they're easier. Sorry. Than doing programmatic. Then I would take this part here and I'd add an image. You could also do a scroll view. There's all kinds of ways to attack this, but however you decide to attack it, anything that may be new is the way that you want to do it. And now that I'm going from one page to another, I want to look at how does, I may not know the name of it, so I'm going to go, how does data work? Oops, sorry. How does data work in compositional layout? So the answer to that is obviously diffable data source. And so that'll give me another set of tutorials that I can watch so that I can now add on to the project. You can also start looking at, you see things like thumbs up and download, and play video. So those are more things that you can add to the list. Like, okay, add a video player. 3 could be add core data for saving. And and then that'll just add like the little extra nuances to your project that you wouldn't get normally. And so when you have a task that you have to actually solve, it makes it easier than just doing tutorials on a whim of I may learn this because I may use it down the road. Here we have a definitive way of going through, figuring out what we need to learn, and then you find your next project, and you can then add on to it, do different things, and that's the way you build your skills rather than just doing tutorials just to do tutorials. So hopefully that like makes a little sense. I didn't want to like go too heavily into this, but I really wanted to kind of focus on how you can avoid tutorial hell, and do something a little bit more streamlined. Hopefully that helps with what you're trying to do. Please, if you don't know or you need to, if you're still not 100% sure, please ask the questions in the comments in YouTube, or on Twitter, either one, and I can answer that question for you. But I think that's all we really wanted to cover today, and I really appreciate Santita for joining us and sharing her story and sharing some of the things that she's going through now. And I think over in the next few months, she's going to go through her transformation and start looking for jobs. So that'll be interesting. And I will give an update when I can in regards to how that goes. But I'm going to leave it at that. Huh?
I'll give you a pre-update. She'll ace it. But do you know it's I want to thank you because I've kind of like I've taken how do you say, I've received a lot of good insights. Sorry, once again my English is broken today, from this, and I guess it really made me think about how I was when I first started learning iOS development, and sometimes, I wish I could give that girl all those years back like a hug and tell her like it's gonna be okay, don't be scared. It's really, really like I'm in awe of your journey. I am feeling really excited, really inspired, and I just wanted to thank you for coming here and talking about it. So so candidly with us. So yeah, honestly, just thank you. It's it's impactful to me to hear this at this very moment. So just yeah, thank you. Maybe later I'll get more words and I'll start thinking. I was like, how did I forget English earlier?
It happens. It happens. And again, like I said, I'd like to thank again Santita there, and I feel like I have the confidence in knowing that you'll be fine, and I think you'll eventually get to there. You may not agree with me at this point, but I still think you've come a long way. I don't think your shyness has anything to do with it. More or less, your comfort level and feeling comfortable, and that usually dictates your shyness, especially at the beginning. Is that you're not really that comfortable and you're not sure, and you don't want to answer a question and it's wrong, and so you just don't say anything because it's easier not to say anything. But the more that I push you and Drake and the rest of the crew, and I think all of you are starting to become more comfortable, and all of you are starting to feel like you belong. It's just a matter of time, and it's there's no rush. I'm not asking you to be comfortable next week or next month or next year. Like, you get comfortable when you're ready. And I think that's kind of the good thing about having a job that you have now is there's no rush, there's no pressure, but eventually you're going to want to make that switch. And so whenever you're ready, you'll be ready. You'll know, because you'll be like, I'm ready. And then it's the journey of dealing with people and interviews and having to now go through your brain of saying, I'm good enough, even if they don't think I'm good enough. Because they're going to judge you regardless off of some piece of paper. And it's not like, remember, you're the asset, not the company. And you bring to them what you're bringing an asset to them. It's not like because they're paying you. It's the other way around, and you just have to find the fit for you. So even if the job is great and they offer you the position, if you don't feel comfortable, then don't take the job, because again, it's about you, and it's about fit, and it's about comfort level, and you want to basically know that you're going to work with a bunch of people who make you comfortable, make you feel like you're at home, and just like it. And that's not easy. And I think when you're new, you just take anything because it's like, hey, it's a job, it's a developer, but it's not. You'll learn real quick that you'll get in there and realize this isn't really where I wanted to be, and now you're stuck. So, take your time, pick the job that you feel is your fit. My first job, I was fortunate. It was 8 years that I worked there. And that's rare. So you just really have to find, what your comfort level is, and just be you and not worry about it. And I think you'll be fine once people start interviewing you and start seeing your skill sets. You'll have plenty of opportunities to pick and choose where you want to go. All right. So, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and end this broadcast. We hope that you guys got some out of this today. If you didn't, then I'm sorry. And
No, sometime we will have a channel.
oh, I like to get Azim has waved hello, and he also said he agreed. I think that again, I really do appreciate you all being here, and in 2 weeks we will have another guest. I don't know who the guest is going to be. I don't know what it's going to be. Huh?
Craig, you should have said it's a surprise. Because the truth is,
it's a surprise. It's going to be a surprise for me too. So we will hopefully get it. But if you're ever interested in being on the show, please reach out to us on Twitter and just kind of send me sort of a general idea of your background and why you think like you'd fit. We've got a few that I've got in mind. Anna's got a few she has in mind. And so we're constantly looking for guests and just ways to improve the show. And as we grow, we hope you'll grow with us. Again, thank you very much. And on that note, I'm going to finish the broadcast and go watch basketball.
Ciao.
Bye.